When you're communicating with a man, there's certain important things to understand. This is man or woman, right? But you got to understand, and it's not just a man. Anybody who's masculine, anybody who has an idea of what they want, right? Unless they're already taking a feminine, submissive stance with you, which basically means that they respect your leadership. They already know that you understand them, the path that you want to be on, and they don't feel like you're against it. They know that you're there to help them. Unless that's the stance that you're taking, you can't just attack somebody's point of view without first listening to understand, then being able to articulate what they mean by what they say in a way to where they agree, right? That you understand where they're coming from. And then agree with the points that make sense. I'm about to give you some real game about communication, right? You have to be able to express that you understand what point of view they're coming from, have an agreement on terms. That doesn't mean that you have to agree with their definition. It means you have to understand their definition enough to speak their language when you're talking to them, right? That doesn't mean that you have to bend on what you want. That doesn't mean that you have to say that I'm going to do what you want to do. It just means you have to be able to listen before you speak, hear where they're coming from, be able to express back to them what they're saying in a way to where they can agree on the terms, right? That's how you have an agreement on terms. Without an agreement on terms, you can never have proper communication in life, right? You can't have it. And once you have an agreement on terms, agree with what makes sense, but then have a way of improving the point of view that they're coming from. This is some very valuable game. If you know how to do this, then you'll be able to communicate versus having debate. That's how you have dialogue versus debate, right? And that's how you have proper debate. If you're arguing about terms, you're missing the whole point, right? When you're just arguing about terms, then you're missing the point. You can let them have their definition, express where they're coming from, then explain how your definition is different, and then explain where you're coming from. And then express how those two different points of view are different. And it's not always about finding a middle ground, but about saying, okay, I see the validity in what you're talking about, but based off of how I see things, this is something I think works a little bit better, right? Now, if somebody knows that there is some validity to what they're saying, if they know there's some validity to what they're saying, and you completely dismiss them, they don't give a fuck what you got to say. They don't. Right? There's a difference between already being in a position where somebody respects you, right? Some people feel entitled to respect. Some people feel entitled to being talked to and treated in a respectful way within a conversation or debate, where they want to jump in and say, no, I just automatically know more than you know, so you should just listen to what I say and fuck what you say. Fuck the entire way you've been living your life. Fuck the entire dream, vision, purpose, or program you got. I just think it's wrong because I think it's wrong. When listen, if you don't have the ability to understand where somebody else is coming from and communicate that back to them, then what you got to understand is that you're too fucking emotional and too fucking triggered and too fucking reactionary to be able to properly lead any fucking thing. I'm just giving you the facts. Now, this is different if you're in a relationship. This is different if you already see, these are things you got to vet for up front, right? So if you're dealing with a woman who has the ability to show deference, a woman who has the ability, or even if a woman who's dealing with a man, if she want to take that masculine dominant stance and she cool with that, she know what come with it, right? Either she's attracted enough to the man or it's a man who's cool with her fuck with other people. Like, all right, cool, right? That's how you want to play the game. That's how you play the game, but just play that shit with character. And that situation is a little bit different, right? Because if you're masculine dominant, you in a leadership position, right? You in a leadership position. And there are different ways to get into that leadership position, right? You can show instead of tell, but being able to understand where somebody's coming from, communicate back to them by what they feel, right? And say, okay, cool, I see where you're coming from. This is what you mean. Do you agree that this is what you mean? All right, cool. These are some things that I think are beneficial about that. This is my way. My way isn't necessarily the only way, but my way is the only way that I'm doing shit, right? My way is the way I'm doing shit. Because there's reasons for that, right? Like if you're masculine dominant, a relationship where two people are connected is different than where you're connecting and you're moving forward in life, or somebody, what they want can deviate you from your path. That's different. But when you're having a conversation, a dialogue, or debate, it's different rules. And sometimes people get overly caught up in the idea of wanting to be dominant. Say, no, I'm right because I'm right. I'm right because that's stupid. No, give some type of logical point of view. But before you get that point of view, listen first, right? Listen before you speak. That's one of the most powerful things that you can do. A soft word turns away wrath. Like this right here is some real game. This is some real understanding about communication and debate versus arguing, right? Like if you want to understand the difference between debate, dialogue, and arguing, this is it right here. Sometimes these things are necessary. Because sometimes you'll be in scenarios where somebody has some information you don't have. You have some information they don't have, right? And y'all have different points of view. Sometimes you got to accept that there are different points of view in life. That doesn't mean that you have to take someone else's point of view. And sometimes a person can have a better point of view to somebody else. You know what I mean? Some things can make more sense. And one thing I'm also not a fan of is taking the relativistic subjectivist fallacy, right? Or the slippery slope fallacy. Understand what logical fallacies are. Understand what straw mans are. If you are creating an ad hominem, right? If you're creating a straw man of someone else's argument when you're having a conversation, especially if you're trying to convince somebody of something that they already don't want to do, then creating the weakest possible explanation of their argument is going to fuck it up. If you can make their argument strong or directly comparative to what they're saying or what they're trying to say, and then you can present the issues that come about from it, they're going to be a lot more likely to listen to what you have to say. A lot more likely. And this is important for a variety of reasons. Sometimes your role with somebody is not to make them do what you want. Sometimes your role is to show them what they want from what they want and show them the best way to go about doing that. Right? The best way to go about doing what they want. If you don't know what they want out of a situation, you don't know what their mindset is, you don't know what their goals are, and you just take words and definitions without expressing and understanding and being able to define those things in a way where they agree, then by proxy, right, automatically, when you try to argue against them, you are making a straw man. And when you make a straw man of someone else's argument, you know what it's going to make them do? It's going to make them feel psychological reactance. That's going to make them feel like you don't understand. It's going to make them feel like they don't respect you and your mindset enough to have a real conversation. Right? See, what you got to understand is that there are different ways to get into a leadership position. Right? If somebody comes to you because they see that you're already in a position where you know what they're trying to do, or you're doing exactly what they want to do, then sometimes if they listen to you enough, they agree with your mindset, they agree with your point of view, then they'll come to you asking a specific question and they want to answer. But even then, it's best to listen to what their entire problem is before you go ahead and try to give them advice on it. It's like if you don't even listen to somebody before you give them advice, you may not even know what their real issue is. You might know, right? But that one little detail that you make an assumption about, with things that you don't know, things you haven't seen, is going to be the one thing that disqualifies your advice. That one thing. I see panels sometimes where a guy will talk 10, 15 seconds, and then people will make assumptions about what the man's saying and then just jump off and call him all kind of weakness and all kind of bitches and feminine and all this shit. And sometimes it's true. Sometimes it's true. But an individual who doesn't know you like that, who doesn't know that you see the inner workings of their lifestyle, they see the inner workings of their plan, what they want out of a situation, and then you just jump off the handle and call them names or say that they're stupid or degrade them or demean them, they're not going to be down to listen to what you got to say. They're not. So this is just Coach Brody on the proper way to give advice, dialogue, debate. You know, it's Coach Brody. I'm out. Hey, it's communication versus arguing, or debate versus arguing. I'm out.